Welcome to Real Talk, Real Estate Discussions with Andrew Kirsh. In each episode, Andrew interviews industry leaders. We'll hear their real-time opinions on today's market, their background and unique career highlights, and guidance for newcomers into the industry. You can find this show at scholarkirsh.com and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Now here's the host of Real Talk, Andrew Kirsh.
Episode 33 of Real Talk. Earlier this week, we closed an interesting deal out of bankruptcy. It was an airport hangar at the Hawthorne Airport, which is a smaller airport a couple miles from LAX. The hangar was actually owned by Jack Northrop from Northrop Grumman many years ago, almost a century ago. Where he kept his private planes. The hangar has access to the runway and also has leases of industrial and aviation use that's complementary to the airport facility. Interesting transaction. Our client was the stalking horse bidder and ultimately was the chosen bidder and closed in purchasing it through bankruptcy. If you haven't purchased real estate through a bankruptcy process, it's definitely a complicated one with many peaks and valleys and a lot of different players. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of it as things shake out over the next 6-12 months. This week on our show, I have my good friend Scott Tiano, the co-founder of Hyperion Realty Capital. They focus on grocery anchored retail centers in the middle market. We have a wide-ranging and fun conversation about the status of retail, specifically grocery anchored, how he as a young boy was taught about retail and how a grocer is doing based on the firmness or mushiness of iceberg lettuce. So you'll want to listen to all the good nuggets that Scott Tiano has on this sector. I know you'll find it fascinating.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Real Talk. I am here with my good buddy, Scott Tiano, co-managing director of, I have to read this because I never know where you work. Hyperion Realty Capital. Scott, how you doing?
You win. I'm great, buddy. Thank you so much for having me on today. This is going to be fun.
Oh gosh, I can honestly say that whenever I see you, my face lights up and the biggest smile from ear to ear. And my wife wants to know, how come I don't have that type of reaction when I see her on a day-to-day basis? But when I see Scott Tiano or, Scott Tiano's calling you, I get so giddy. So Scott, you look like you're in a comfortable position in front of a beautiful fireplace and chair. I hope you're on a couch. Let's get into it.
I'm down. I will be the most open book. It will be scary. But I'm ready. You can ask me literally anything. I'll pretend it's you and me sitting at Nate and Al's over a cup of coffee and reminiscing about Beverly High and Taft High.
I love it. Well, then you don't know me because I don't drink coffee. It'll stunt my growth. And being 48 years old, I heard there's a late 40s growth spurt, and caffeine could, defeat that. So
the growth spurt goes out, not up, unfortunately.
All right. Before we get into trouble, let's get into real estate. Tell me, what does Hyperion Realty Capital do?
We do a lot, actually, but it's all focused in the grocery anchored shopping center realm. We like to play in the middle market, so underneath the institutional radar and above the fray of the masses. We manage a couple funds. My roots are in retail, and if you're running out of questions, I'll tell you how I develop my love for retail.
Yeah, well, I'm done. I don't have any more questions.
This has been great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope it's been very informative to my audience. All right. So walk us through, I guess the type of deal that Hyperion is pursuing, and I guess I need to distinguish between a fund deal and a syndication deal.
Yeah, sure. So we just closed our first fund, which was an $80 million, just over $80 million, allowing us to purchase about $250 million worth of grocery anchored shopping centers.
What do you think is more important, people skills or real estate skills within real estate fundamentals, Excel? You know, what's the more important aspect of your business?
I know you want me to pick one, and I'm not gonna pick one because I'm sorry, just it takes a village, it takes both. But I think the interesting thing about where we play in the retail space, and it's unlike multifamily, is we can still trade on relationships with Kroger, with Starbucks, with Burlington, with TJ. It all matters. And you might say, okay, great, you've got a great piece of real estate. And if it's that great, then Starbucks will find you, Burlington will find you. Yeah, but when? And so much of how we're able to succeed in this business is by doing things faster than the next guy. And so I love that, whereas my dad would say, oh yeah, I got a line on a deal down the street, and there was no transparency, no efficiency in the marketplace, and you could actually get a good deal. And you could leverage those relationships with brokers. Today, you can't find those opportunities to use your relationships except for in retail.
So when you're evaluating a deal, are you, I guess at what point are you, assuming it's a value add deal and you're looking to leverage your tenant relationships to come into a center, how important are those phone calls with potential tenants to occupy that center that you're thinking of purchasing? Are you having those conversations while you're in due diligence, or are you, based on your 25, 30 years of experience, knowing these types of tenants aren't in this center, but I know what they want, and once I secure it, I'm going to get them? Maybe it's in 12, 24, 36 months. I don't know. Walk me through your process of being able to add value for your investors.
Yeah, I mean, you touch on a few points there, a few good points. I'll give you an example. We just we closed on a deal up in the Seattle Tacoma region where we own a number of properties, and one of our anchors, Michael's, had been there for a long time and had a lease expiration within 1 year. That was a significant percentage of the GLA. So being that we had to underwrite them leaving in a year, it didn't fit the mandate of our fund. But we like the real estate. And to your point, we use a lot of different data points, technology not the least. So, I know you know about Placer. I know you know about the demographic information that's available to us. We have we accumulate rent rolls and sales data on every competing shopping center in the Western region. So we use all this data, which ultimately gets us to a place where we use our gut. And so I think this center up in Puyallup, Washington, is a good example of using relationships, because the prior owner, who had owned it for 6 years, never contacted Michael's, and because of that, we were able to call up, find out they're doing $5 million in sales, plus or minus, healthy store, and they're interested in renewing for 10 years. So had we not been able to do that during due diligence, the complexion of the deal changes, the lending would have changed. The whole execution is just pivoted.
Yeah. Retail has gone through an incredible roller coaster over the last 20 years. And not to denigrate retail, but for many of those years, it seemed like a roller coaster that just kept on going down. Internet, GFC, COVID. But in the last, 2 years or so, I have done more retail deals than possibly my entire 23-year career. That there's more interest in retail, in grocery anchored retail. Now, maybe that's just me, but I just feel it. I see it. I have the conversations. A lot of the equity groups that we represent or talk to want to meet sponsors like yourself who's into retail. They were under allocated so many years into retail. So what has happened? Or let me start with, do you share that same sentiment? And what has happened over the last couple of years that has propped up retail to an asset class that is now in demand?
Yeah, 100% agree. We definitely see the institutional groups pivoting away from multifamily where they can't get positive leverage. You can still get positive leverage on retail, especially grocery anchored shopping centers. If you want to lump retail into one group, you're missing not only the evolution of retail, but you're missing commercial real estate today, because the way we look at real estate today is vastly different than my dad looked at it. Today we say we buy corners, not intersections. We say we'll buy an intersection, but we're not buying a market. We have to be laser focused, and we have to internalize the data on our tenants. We have to understand how the uses in every shop space, in every anchor, in every pad, in every end cap are evolving. And I like the analogy, well, that's not really an analogy, but it's more of a juxtaposition. When you look at multifamily, and I'm not trying to beat up multifamily, we own multifamily, it's a great asset. And in an inflationary time, it's nice because you can mark rates up every year. And in retail, oftentimes you'll have a 5 or 10 year lease. Maybe it has 3%, maybe it's CPI, maybe it's flat. So you could be exposed there. However, what I think is unique to retail is that the intrinsics of the land underneath a grocery anchored retail space provide for the most opportunity, because you're able to leverage your finger on the pulse of what's changing. And there's been tremendous changes in retail. Look at how much medical you're seeing infused into grocery anchored shopping centers or non-anchored shopping centers.
And when you say medical, what type of, I'm seeing next to the Westfield shopping center, and it's unbelievable the types of medical that they have there. But your smaller grocery anchor, what type of, are you talking about the CVSs? Or are you talking about actually healthcare service providers?
No, you're talking about imaging centers, urgent cares, women's clinics, and then on the periphery, medical oriented. So you're seeing chiropractors, dentists, orthodontists. You're seeing the banner healthcares, the UCLAs, you're seeing a consolidation of sorts, which we're seeing everywhere. I think the next is going to be, Rite Aid, CVS, Walgreens, with Rite Aid now on the ropes because of the opioid situation. They're trying to, get away from some lawsuits and the amount of debt. We're going to see some further consolidation, which again has its impact not just on medical but on every use, because with consolidation there's shared information. With shared information, there's more acuity in how to connect the community with what is what's there in the center, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And so when you see a center with great bones, it's a great corner, demographics are strong, but it just doesn't have the right tenant mix, right? You're like a producer of a movie where you need to hire the right director and actors and writers and cinematographers. And so do you have a standard playbook where these particular uses fit well together, or is it customized based on the location and the demographics, and like how do you get into putting that puzzle together where you say at the end of, I don't know, 2-3 years, when I'm done with this re-tenanting it, this thing's going to work, and I know it's going to work based on 25 years of experience?
Yeah. I love that analogy. Namely because I was in a past life a movie producer. Go ahead and look me up. It's not those movies. They would have been more profitable than the ones I made, but it was a fun time of life. But
so I can IMDb Scott Tiano.
You can.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. You know, you're going to do it right now. Look at
Yeah,
you.
I'm going to do it right now. So, but keep talking now. Go.
But it is. It is. You know, I think the successful sponsors really are able to synthesize the data and the operational expertise with the gut feeling. I remember, and I alluded to this earlier, my dad was kind of my inspiration for getting into this business. And I remember as an accountant, he would take me to the office and I would look at his fish tank. That was cool, but it wasn't as fun as sitting in his grocery anchored shopping center in Granada Hills that he built, sitting in the parking lot for an hour and watching people walk in and out of the store, look what's in their cart. But then he would go one up. He would take me into the saloon, which I shouldn't have been in. So that was like all the reason for going, because that was cool when you're 10. But we also went in and he started grabbing the produce. He would especially go for the iceberg lettuce. And that was his way of figuring out how much that store did in gross sales, because if it was firm, they were doing well. If it was mushy, it's been sitting around for a while. The turnover's not so good. So he would say, well, either this is a bad location or we got to talk to the operator. So then you talk to the operator. And then when you talk to the operator, you get clues. So to answer your question in like 30 minutes, sorry.
To make a long story longer.
You synthesize all this information. You do. But ultimately, it's the experience, and the curation is so critical, because especially today in retail, the experience that people are having, unfortunately, is really lacking because of HR issues, nationwide. But there's also certain brands that get it, and they're doing everything they can to make the experience worthwhile. And that's yeah.
Can I cut you off right there? When you say brands and experience, the experience that a customer has in a retail center, is that the tenant's job? Is it the landlord's job? Is it both? You go to a Caruso center, that's him. That's the landlord making that experience. Now, granted, there's only 3 or 4, Caruso centers. But even talking to Sandy Siegel, our good friend, who has a product or a asset type similar to yours, he constantly talks about what the landlord can do to make the customer's experience better. I don't know. So about, your type of grocery anchored is what type of experiences can you have a say in versus the tenant?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And when you bring up Sandy Siegel, who is, he's a mentor, he's just an amazing operator. The thing that puts us both together in the same ballpark which is hard for me to say. It's like, you know, I'm a rookie that gets to play with you know, Mookie Betts or something. It's that the curation, the experience, the understanding of customer desires, which has shifted so much to convenience and is constantly shifting. You have to be able to pivot with them. And does the landlord have a merchandising budget that he, you know, puts onto every tenant so that they have to contribute to a marketing, you know, budget for the center? You know, that's nice. Few people do that. I believe Sandy does it. We don't do that because most of what we are focused on is the discount oriented center. So we're trying to fill that niche and understanding the trends. For instance, Walmart year over year sales, Q2 2023, 1 year of data shows an increase in their sales of about 6%. Juxtapose that with Target, same time period, sales decreased about 5%. What does that tell you? It could tell you a lot of things, but if you think of Walmart as the commodities and the needs-based inventory, and you look at Target as more discretionary and more of a higher ticket item, you're seeing that there's a bit of a breadcrumb, you know, for us to see that, you know, we're shifting into more discount demand. And if you layer that on top with this recession that somehow we've been entering into for the last, I don't know, it seems like they've been talking about it for 15 years. And you talk about consumer confidence, which still good, but, you know, is showing a little chink in the armor. And you're seeing some signs that, for me, tells me we've got to start looking at discount operators a little more closely and more durable income streams like medical, and not staying away from, you know, an 8,000 foot restaurant concept, you know, going more towards, you know, the some of the less, you know, the chickens and the burgers and the coffees, they're so saturated. So you got to look at concepts that, you know, have some potential for longevity.
Yeah. Was there a time during the last 15, 20 years where you were concerned that brick and mortar retail shopping centers were dead and that everything's going to be online, and you just, I don't know, just, you didn't know about the future of your real estate?
Yeah. Our thesis for our first fund was that we had to underwrite the grocer on industrial terms. In other words, if the pandemic and e-commerce and everything destroyed the grocer and everything went online, do we have a last mile distribution hub that we could lease out at industrial rents? And if we could check those boxes, buying the anchor with rents at industrial or lower, then we would greenlight the project. So did I ever really think that it could decimate retail? No, no, because people need to touch and feel. People need to be around people. People need to connect. And connection is such an important concept for any business, any brand, anything. And I think the grocery anchored center is so cool because that is where the community connects to, I mean, it's like high school lunchtime. You know, you're going to see these people, for better or worse, every day in and day out.
So walk me through what other asset classes your current company does.
Well, all of the other asset classes are really remnants of JS Western, which was the company that I founded in 2011, and had the opportunity to partner with some great guys that we know, Brian Shirkin and Steve Bram. And, I found that in partnering with experts, real mavens in their particular field, I got a twofer, and everybody loves a twofer. I got a great investment opportunity and I got an education. So whether it's student housing, as you know, or it's creative office, or it is multifamily, I've got to work with some great people, and that's why I'm in this business. Going full circle back to your original question, it's 100% why I'm in this business.
And, besides business, I just know from, our many conversations, you are very involved in the community and philanthropically very involved. And not just, you see people at events and they are attendees of events, but you are passionate about being the heads of organizations, charitable organizations, the head of certain programming. So talk about the different charity or community events that you and your family are a part of.
It keeps me sane, selfishly. And it's funny because, with the mental health crisis that we're seeing in the country now, one of the best remedies is to stop thinking about yourself and think about someone else. And it really just opens up. I literally get the chills just saying it, because it's such an impactful paradigm shift in someone's thinking of just, we lead stressful, difficult, challenging, demanding lives. How the heck can you, in good conscience, put all that aside and go help somebody in need? We do it with our pocketbooks, but doing it with your hands and your heart and your head is, it just opens up some things that you never expect. And it has residual benefits that extend into your business, into your personal life, and beyond. So thank you. Jewish Big Brothers, a plug for Jewish Big Brothers, Big Sisters. So meaningful. I've had a little brother for 25 years on the board. Really enjoy that that organization. I can go on and on. I know we have limited time. Jewish Federation.
We only have three more hours left. So you have more, please fill it.
Oh man, that's great. I mean, okay, just clear my schedule. So Jewish Federation is great. I will get a little vulnerable here. When I first started in real estate in 2004, someone told me I should go to one of those breakfasts at the Four Seasons, and there was not a philanthropic bone in my body. I'm being honest. I went. I thought I'd meet some people, and whatnot. One thing leads to another. I joined this thing called YLDI, which is now CLI, which is such an amazing organization that I know you know of. And it's those relationships, and through those relationships, you do deals, and through those deals, they get stronger and stronger. And it comes back down to, why do I do this? Because, real estate affords me the opportunity to be philanthropic, and gives me the opportunity to talk to people like you, and to some really amazing people that I would never normally get to talk to. I mean, it's kind of how it works, right?
Absolutely. Look, I was part of that YLDI program, but because I'm much younger than you, I think it was a couple years later. It was 18.
Do they have a bleep button?
It was 18 of us. Went to Israel for 10 days, and then we went to Ojai, but just these monthly meetings and connections. And I would say most of those 18 people I've either done business with, just had very close social, personal relationships, been to their weddings, their kids' brisses and birthdays.
Totally.
And so people ask me, it's like, Andrew, how do you make it in the legal industry, or how do you, open up your own firm? How do you cultivate a book of business? I'm like, it's a marathon, and it is just establishing those relationships. Obviously the work has to speak for itself, but it's the relationships. And I want to segue into the last segment of our conversation. I like to end with the world famous Real Talk lightning round. Okay. So you ready for this? So short answers for these questions. And I'm going to ask a question, and you may revert back to the last minute or two of what we were just talking about. But you and I had dinner recently with our good buddy, Scott Ginsberg, another Scott, and you asked us a question. And it was the first time I've ever been asked it in more of a like personal friends, but it was more of a business dinner closing celebration. And you asked, what inspires you? And so I'm going to ask that of you, lightning round, but what inspires Scott Tiano for my Real Talk listeners?
Wow. Okay. I'll just say it. It's my kids. I'll leave a pregnant pause because it is so different for every dad. And I could give you 30 answers, but that's why I'm here. I love my kids.
No, I hear you. I'm just in both my kids' school. It's not back to school night, but we just had our meetings with our new teachers. We start. All right. Enough of the sentimental. Let's get right into what people want. Okay. And what people want is while you were speaking so eloquently, I was ignoring you, but yet looking at you, and I went on IMDb. You did it to yourself, Scott. So I'm gonna throw out 3 movies. You got to talk about them. Scott Tiano is known for. Do you know what I'm about to say?
I know the movies I made. Yeah.
2 Shades of Blue. Fate. What is this?
Fait accompli.
Fait accompli. And Trash. All 3 in 1999. You had a hell of a 1999, the final year of the 20th century. Yeah. Man, you were making movies. What are we can we see these on where can we pick these up?
I don't know. I mean, you could probably pick them up somewhere. I don't know. You're not going to go to Blockbuster, but those were fun times, buddy. I got stories upon stories, but if you want me to meld inspiration with that, I will say that I think the moment where I realized I had made it, at a certain echelon, was I was driving limos to make ends meet while I was producing. Okay, nobody knows this. I think the statute of limitations is gone. So oh my God, I'm 26. I'm driving limos. I'm producing movies, and one of the guys that I drove happened to be one of the producers of Seinfeld, and I was in Cannes one year with a couple films, and I was at this VIP party, and I'm talking to a lesser known Howard Stern and Rennie Harlan and his wife Gina Davis, and it was just us in this party, and the guy that I used to drive in the limo, he sees me. He's like, "What are you doing here?"
And this is
it was fun. I'm like, I got 2 movies here, and we're meeting with Germany and Spain and France, and it was like, yeah, I made it.
Wow.
Yeah.
More fun. Or how about? I got to end with this question.
Oh boy.
Craziest thing that ever happened in one of your limousines.
Oh. Well, there's that. There's that.
And I don't even know.
Chickens happened in my limousine.
Live chicken.
It was my inaugural run with the boss. He said, "You can have the job. You just got to pick me up tomorrow. We're going to go into Lancaster. We're going to hang out with the family, and you're going to go take us home. And if you do a good job, you got the job." Great. How hard could it be? We get to Lancaster. He says, "Go to that farm over there and pick me up some chickens, 2 chickens." Yeah, I'll go with you. Fine. We go. I have to go grab these chickens and put them into a bag. And then I got to check out. He paid. And then as we're driving out, he sees a cat And he's like, oh, I want to get that cat. Okay. So I went back and I got the cat. So we put the cat and the 2 chickens in the trunk because they couldn't be in the cabin. And we opened the trunk. It was a feather and blood fest, and I had to clean it up, and I got the job.
Oh my God. I didn't think you were going there.
You asked. You asked.
Mr. Tiano, you are always a ball of laugh. You are always just an inspiration on a serious note, and just fun to be with. And I appreciate all of your candor and your humility and all your success, man. I mean, it's I really am in awe of what you've been able to do, and most importantly, of everything that you've said and me of knowing you. There isn't one person in this community that would say a negative thing about Scott Tiano. Everyone has a positive thing, and I agree. So thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for being you. And when you see your wife tonight, you give her the Scott Tiano that you give me.
Thank you, buddy. Those are great words. Like I said, it takes a village, and you're a big and important part of our village. And I'm not reciprocating just because I feel like I have to. I would say this to anyone, anywhere, anytime. You are a mensch, and you just add value to our lives, and me and John, and mine personally. So I thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. The only reason why I have this show is so people can say nice things about me at the end, but I always make sure I say nice things first, so then they're compelled to say it again.
And then you get the last word.
I get the last word. Well, it's called Real Talk with Andrew Kirsh. So, that's right. Mr. Tiano, thank you, man.
Love you, buddy.
I appreciate
it.
You.
All right.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Real Talk, Real Estate Discussions with Andrew Kirsh. You can catch prior episodes at scholarkirsh.com and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and for sharing the show with others.